All right, hey everybody. Welcome to our third meeting of the semester. If you need to sign in, you can use the QR code, and I think Jessica sent the link in the chat. Today we have three guest speakers, two of them NC State alumni, going to Brody and UNC. I think that's Hannah and Jessica. And then we also have Jan from Campbell. He was at our meeting 2 weeks ago, and he's agreed to come back today. So we're excited to have all three of them. We noticed that, like for all of our meetings, we've been getting a lot of questions about, timeline, picking medical schools, stuff like that. So we thought it'd be good to have multiple medical students coming and giving you multiple perspectives and insights on that stuff. So let's get started.
Okay, so for volunteer opportunities, I looked into a lot. So NC State has a new club, Project Sunshine, where you can directly volunteer with pediatric patients, but currently due to Corona, it's over on Zoom. So if you're interested in that, message them on Instagram, but you can also volunteer individually if you don't want to do group volunteering. You can volunteer with Hospice Heartland. You can also volunteer with NAMI Wake County, which focuses on mental health. Upchieve Tutoring is volunteering with low-income high school students, and you can also do a lifeline through texting or acting as a resource. You can also make masks and donate them. So if you're looking for even more, you can look through volunteer search database. So Active Good is specifically for the Triangle area. And I think volunteer match, there's a lot of remote opportunities if you're looking for that. You can also volunteer for Red Cross and the United Nations, Smithsonian transcribers. You are able to transcribe images of historical documents. Bookshare is where they created a library to make reading easier for people with dyslexia, blindness, or other challenges. Ultimately, you'll be scanning books or proofreading. Zoomverse is where you help researchers with their projects. Amnesty Decoder helps with research as well and expose human rights violations and also get involved with elections. There's a lot of volunteers that are needed on campus. So you'd be helping people find tally, parking duty, and other positions. And recruiting will take place October 15th to the 30th, and we will email the sign up and any other information we receive. Okay, so leading into clinical opportunities or ideas, Urban Ministry of Wake County, they usually offer clinical internships that you can apply. So you can be a medical scribe intern or like medical records or lab work. I think the deadline for the fall has already passed, so you can apply for the spring. Work as a medical scribe through Scribe America, ProScribe, or any local medical practices. There's a lot of Instagram accounts that offer virtual shadowing and opportunities, so you can actually look into that if you want. You can also be certified as a phlebotomist, EMT, CNA, over the summer. You can also subscribe to NC State's pre-med email list and keep an eye out on EPAC opportunities. And also HapTech, which I mentioned 2 weeks ago. If you want more details, just let me know.
All right, now on to the main event. So we have, like Mohammed said, our three guest speakers. So our first one is Hannah Conley. She is a fourth-year MD student who is going into OB. She is an NC State alumni, and she's going to Brody School of Medicine. Hannah, could you please introduce yourself?
Hi guys, can everyone hear me? Awesome. So like you said, I'm Hannah. I went to NC State for undergrad and took I graduated in December of 2015. So I took like a gap year and a half almost and worked as a medical assistant at a gynecology only office. Applied only one time and got into Brody, among other schools. And I've been there for the last 4 years. I absolutely love it. I'm welcome to any questions that you guys have. I'm not on the admissions committee or anything, so please feel free to ask anything you would like to know. I'm happy to help. I will like to give a disclaimer that I am a little bit removed from the process since I did it like 4 years ago, I guess. So I just wanted to let you guys know that, but welcome.
All right, thank you. On to our next speaker, we have Jan Mayer. He was actually with us 2 weeks ago for our ND versus DO conversation. And he's a second-year student at Campbell University. Jan, would you like to just add anything on to your last intro real quick?
Thanks, Ryan. No, just want to thank you guys for having me back on. Again, originally from New York, came down here did a master's and then stayed at Campbell for med school. So just thankful for you guys having me back, and hopefully I can, answer, help everyone else, answer your questions and see, what parts of your application you have questions about, or if anything you think you need to improve or whatever it may be. So thanks for having me.
All right, thank you for coming. All right, and our third speaker is Jessica. She is an MD student at UNC, second year, and she is an NC State alumni as well. All right, welcome, Jessica.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, so I'm Jessica, and it's funny because I graduated same year as Hannah, but I never really knew Hannah. So that's funny. But yeah, I graduated 2015, and I moved immediately to DC. I did a master's at Hopkins in biotech. It was a post-bac master's program, and it had like built-in MCAT review. I ended up getting a publication out of it. So I did that. That was a year long. Then I stayed in DC. I did some research there. Had a little bit of health issues, so I moved back home to Raleigh because that's where I'm from, obviously. And then I started working at Duke. I worked there for 2 years, and during the time I was at Duke, I was applying to med school. So I'm a reapplicant, so if anyone has any questions about what that is, or any questions. But the first time I applied, I got waitlisted and I didn't get in, and then I spruced up my application and reapplied the second time, and I got an interview like really early on in the cycle, and I got into UNC very early on too. So yeah, that's my story. I was so active at State and I miss it a lot. I was in this pre-med club and all that good stuff. So you guys are in really good hands. Like UNC undergrads here, there's no pre-med club. They're reaching out to us. They're asking us stuff. And it's kind of sad they don't really have the resources that you do. So definitely take advantage of this. Also, don't mind my casualness in the background.
All right, well, thank you for coming. We're gonna go ahead and open it up for questions. Y'all, please feel free to turn on your cameras and unmute and ask your questions out loud. You can also drop them in the chat as well. But yeah, go ahead and ask them anything that you have on your mind.
So I heard that, oh, hi, first of all, thank you for the Q&A. It's really great. So I heard that when you apply to med school, it's like on a first come, first served basis. Like the earlier you apply, the more chance you have to get in than if you apply later in the cycle. Is that true or not?
I can speak a little bit about that. I don't know for sure if it's a first come, first served basis. I don't know if anybody else knows for sure, but I do know when I applied, like I had my application done and submitted by the first day that it opened. And then as secondaries came in, I was getting those in within 2 weeks of getting them, just as a way to definitely show my interest in the school. So I would say that definitely applying earlier is better. I don't really, since I've never worked on the admission side, I don't know for sure how they look at applications, but that's what I did, and that's what I would recommend, is just get everything done as soon as possible and submit that.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate that it's not really, I wouldn't say it's necessarily first come first serve, but it's so much easier if you apply earlier, because then you're given consideration, I guess. It also really depends on the school. Like UNC, they'll do it, it's not technically rolling admissions, but they do look at, people immediately as you apply. Whereas I know when I applied to ECU, at least, they actually did it was like month to month. Like they looked at everybody from like this cohort or like this time period, and then they looked at everybody who applied within this time period. So it kind of depends on the school. So research the school, but in general, early is like a good rule to stick with.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You want to get in as early as possible, definitely between June to July, even August, but just because pretty sure most med schools, they start interviewing by August, and they start even having acceptances by mid to late August, early September. So you want to be able to, get your application in as early, but by any means does not mean rush your application, because you want to get your best app forward as early as possible. So even if it means delaying your app by a month, but you'll have maybe an extra letter of recommendation or two that'll stand out, or if you're taking the MCAT, whatever, it's really like, depends on you, right? And your stats and all that stuff. So early the better, but don't rush your app, and don't just apply to apply is my advice.
Totally.
Perfect. Thank y'all.
Yeah, totally. What you were saying, Jan, apply when you're ready. So I see a lot of people kind of asking, or someone, asking privately about like doing a gap year or even just reapplicant. I would just say, like, number one rule of thumb, apply when you're at your best. And that looks different for everybody. Like, please don't feel the rush to just immediately apply because you're graduating undergrad and you think that clock's ticking. Like, that's totally not true. It's very individualized, and it's about you doing well in your respective program. So make sure you're at the mindset where you need to do that. For me, I was so involved in undergrad. I mean, I did everything. Like, I tutored, whatever, gave tours. But I knew that I didn't want to go directly through because I felt like I didn't really have a lot of life experience, plus my MCAT sucked. So I kind of wanted to look for more help with that, kind of get a new perspective on things too. So I was really lucky that I got into my Hopkins program. And I recommend a post-bac program. That's what I did. But again, it's really dependent on everyone. Like, if maybe you have like some sort of story that you feel like you might need to explain, I might recommend doing a post-bac program, because then that really shows that, like, one, you can handle the load of a graduate coursework. And plus, if you just have kind of like, not an extra degree, but if you just take some even post-bac classes, it just kind of shows your seriousness as well. So yeah, sorry to just ramble. And I can try to like type in the chat just for the sake of time. Like, if there's something that I can see, I can maybe just like type it. So yeah, just some thoughts.
I'm also a big fan of the whole gap year thing. For me personally, I was really pretty worn out when I graduated, and I don't know that I could have gone into med school and done as well as I wanted to. I also think that I probably grew up a lot and just had good life experience in the year and a half off that I worked. Just got into the workforce and saw what that was like. And as weird as this sounds, it made me miss school, and I was really glad to be going back to med school and pursuing my dreams. So I'm a big proponent of it. I think it makes you a better med student. I think it'll make you a better doctor, just to have seen what it's like to be on the opposite end as a medical assistant or phlebotomist or whatever that is, and then being the physician. So I recommend doing that in whatever capacity you think you can do that. And I guess I know Jessica answered some about what she did in college. In college, let me remember what I did. I was former president of pre-health and pre-med back in my day. So I did that. I was an RA for 2 years in Sullivan Hall when that was a thing. I think is that gone now? And I was in the scholars program. I got a medical assistant job, which I kind of put in the chat. I got a medical assistant job, I guess my sophomore year, after I did like a year of research my freshman year, and was just doing like blood draws and basic like EKGs, and then was able to kind of use that to get other jobs, like in my position at the gynecology office. So I kind of like dipped my toes in everything. I was in a sorority. I was on the equestrian team because I rode horses. So I was just very busy and everything, kind of like Jessica. So that's just what I did.
Like, I feel like I saw you everywhere, which is
probably. I mean, we have similar friends,
yeah,
so
yeah,
it's so big.
We know our mutual friend who used to be the pre-med president.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's so funny. I don't know, Jan, if you want to add any input.
Yeah, so similar like to Jessica, so I did a post-bac as well. So I did a master's. And that's for me personally, just because I wanted to improve my undergrad GPA. And also it offered a MCAT like boot camp, which is something that usually I generally struggle with standardized testing. So I knew that was something I'd be interested in. So for a post-bac, if for me specifically, again, like Jessica has her own reason why she did it, but for me it was to improve my like undergrad GPA. And I was able to right my wrongs that I did as a 19-year-old and do well in the program. So med school, took that into consideration a lot more than my grades as a 19-year-old compared to a 25-year-old. I also graduated in 2017, so it took 2 gap years, and I'm so thankful I did because I was a medical scribe for 2 years. I was also involved in Project Sunshine. I was involved in a club in undergrad. It's called Med Life. So a lot of, I coached basketball too. So a lot of life experiences I brought to the table. And it really does help in med school, like when you have OSCEs, and like I was a scribe, so I got paid to write charts. So for me, like it wasn't really a struggle for that aspect of your like OSCE sessions, which is like your standardized patient. And I think for our class specifically, our average age of first year was 24 or 25. There are kids that were straight out of college. There's a lot of kids from NC State at our program. And there's a lot of them that were straight out of undergrad. I mean, at that point, it's just, if you want to just rush through it and be done as quick as possible, that's, if that's what you're interested in. For me, I wanted to take that time off because I know like second I start med school, like now it's just, it's just going to be a straight shot because then you have med school and you have boards, residency, and, you're going to miss out on like your early youth, I guess, that you could have gone traveling, so. It's what you're interested in. I wanted to take that time off and, see the world before I couldn't anymore. So it really depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, the burnout is real too. So make sure you have some like personal coping strategies. And what helps me is to really kind of think about the curiosity and that I'm going to help my patients in the future by keep going on, because even though I took time off, I'm still feeling some burnout, but I mean, I'm glad I had the time that I did because I grew so much. And I want to kind of, say a couple things that, just because, again, I want to reiterate this, just because like you're doing here or you don't go straight through, like does not mean anything about like who you are or what you're capable as. Like it just means it's not the right timing. And then again, I will say that as a reapplicant, it's different for every school, but UNC loved reapplicants because that showed perseverance. And then the second time around, I was kind of able to like clean up my application because I really learned a lot from the first application cycle. I had 2 interviews the first cycle and I got waitlisted to a school in Chicago. My other interview was UNC and I didn't get in. And then second time around, 2 interviews as well, UNC and ECU, and I only got into UNC. And my UNC interview process was totally different. Like they changed it. So it really changes year to year. And thankfully I got in earlier in the cycle because I think I also applied earlier in the cycle, second time around. So yeah, that was just a little plug I wanted to say.
I'm trying to answer questions again.
I know there's so many
on the chat and in person. These are all great questions. I'm trying to look at them. Let's see.
For how did I readjust to schoolwork? So me doing a master's program like gave me more confidence in the schoolwork, like in the med school. Of course, it's not as comparable, but I mean, as long as you have like that, boost of confidence and self-esteem just to get you through it. So I feel like, but if you did a master's program or a post-bac, like, yeah, it would help with that aspect. but it really, like, med school is just an adjustment. Like, I'm sure Hannah as a fourth year can add to this, that you will adjust from block to block. Things that worked in one block probably won't work in the other. So it's just a continuous readjustment. There really isn't anything that can get you like ready for med school. You just have to get in and just find what really works for you. Yeah.
I think we've had some questions about like volunteering and like the online internships and volunteering because of the pandemic. And I'm gonna like just guess and give you like my gut about that, since this is such a different year for you guys. I know it really does suck, trust me, because it's hard on our end too. All of my interviews for residency are virtual this year. So I think with anything with volunteering, I know it looks good to have stuff on your application and you kind of want to have the check boxes and do all the right things to get into med school. I mean, I did it. But I think the biggest thing is if you do find these volunteer activities that are not in person, try to find ones that mean something to you and that you can learn from or tell a story about. I mean, that's going to be hard just because of the lack of potential like interactions with people. But I think that's the biggest thing, is just if you're maybe tutoring kids on Zoom or WebEx or whatever, and that's what your volunteering is right now. I mean, those are great stories because you're still like learning about yourself, learning to help others. So that's, I don't know, my input about that. I think it's med schools are going to have to be flexible about what you've done and be understanding. I know we don't have a lot of answers about that right now, but they're going to have to, because we're all in this together. And so that just makes it a little bit better. And I'm sure everyone has probably already said that to you. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts about that, but
yeah, the biggest way you can stand out, honestly, is do something you're passionate about, because when they ask you about it and you can talk about it and they see that passion, you'll stand out, right? Because the biggest thing I know I mentioned last time, don't do something just because you think it'll look good, right? Like, for example, like doing, like, if you did chemistry research just because, like, oh, research will look good on my application. Then if you have, or biochem research, but then if you happen to be interviewed by a biochem professor who knows biochem way better than we ever can, and he asks you about it and you start fumbling through, it's like, okay, well, this person really isn't that interested in biochem. This person just did it just to say they did it, right? Anything on your application you put is fair game to ask. So you want to be asked stuff that you're actually passionate about, like for whatever case may be, whether it's sports or a fundraiser or volunteering in the ED or whatever it may be. Like, that's the best way you can stand out. If anyone wants to add.
On my personal statement, so like I said, I learned things from applying the first time around, and then my personal statement the second time, I kind of learned that's really important to just like be yourself, not what you think the school wants you to be, because that's just how it fits. So I actually kind of wrote a poem for my personal statement, so it was very creative, and I think that kind of made me stand out a little bit. But definitely just be yourself. Like, if you love something like horses, like, you can write about that if you want to, but just make sure you like answer like the deeper questions within that the school's looking for. Like, they don't want to surface like, I love horses, but you know, if you've always like put so much time and effort, or you know, went out of your way to do something or whatever, like that's the stuff they want to hear about, like the leadership stuff or like the passion. Because they just want to, if you get an interview, they like you, they just want to know who you are.
100%, because like I know I mentioned someone privately, like I coached basketball my whole life, and I got lucky in that the person I interviewed with all coaches his daughter's high school basketball team. So for literally our entire conversation, we only talked about coaching and basketball, and it got to the point that our conversation was just so like, you know, natural, that when they got a 2-minute warning that our interviews were allowed to bring up, he's like, oh man, I forgot to ask you, like, he was like, all right. He just picked up a random thing. He's like, oh, why'd you do psychology? And I answered it. He's like, all right, great answer, whatever. Because at that point, like, they like you enough to offer you an interview. He's like, you're on paper, you look good. Now they just want to see if you have a personality, if you're someone that fits what they're looking for, if someone you know what I mean. So if you get an interview, that's a, you know, great job. It's no longer you on paper. It's like you in person. So yeah.
Okay, I was going to ask a question,
Oh,
but
yeah.
I was interrupted. So now
No,
I'm
ask your
going
question.
to. So I know a lot of the discussion so far has been about passion, and what I've slowly come to realize is what they truly want to see is how passionate are you about medicine. Now, my question is regarding, with the pandemic and stuff like that, it's hard to log hours to show on paper that same passion you may have, that if I was talking to you directly, I could show that to you, right? If you could see it in my eyes, my tone, that's all obvious. On an application, not so much. It's kind of the hours and stuff like that that represent your passion. How do you think they're going to be balancing that with applicants like me? I'm currently only a sophomore, so most of my application building time is being affected by COVID. And on top of that, I know, Jessica, you go to UNC, you go to Campbell. These are kind of two different schools that vary a lot in what they like to see. UNC is very research intensive usually, while Campbell is more about, as a DO, it's all about patient care. And, so your passions as a student will be very different. How do you think they look at that in when they look at applications? For example, like Ryan is, I'm an EMT as well. But at the same time, I'm doing some research with the business side of medicine. Where would that fit into both schools?
There's a lot of questions in that. So, I mean, it's great questions, and they're all things that I considered too. Let me just share my experience, and if I don't answer a specific question, you can re-ask it, or somebody else can, remember. But honestly, a huge thing was I was very research oriented, actually. Like when I worked at Children's National in DC, like I ran a study, and I wrote the IRB protocols, like the consent forms and all that good stuff. And then I also did like wet research. So I had a lot of that experience. And I mean, I had that publication as well. And UNC was fine with my research, but they wanted me to see like just as equal patient care, which is not something that I didn't have a lot of. I mean, I did have some of it, but they actually classified it as research just because you have to like label your hours and stuff. So yeah, I mean, they didn't like that the first time around. And I was so lucky because there was this really awesome advisor, Dr. Flick, if y'all know her or have heard of her. She helped me figure out what my feedback was from my interview. And that's how I kind of knew that they were disappointed in let's not say disappointed. They just wanted more clinical hours. So yeah, they wanted to see that other side of me. And I guess that's not something I showed to them. So honestly, I mean, I'm not going to go to, UNC and say like, I want to practice like rural medicine, like, and do research like in this specific cohort. Like, of course I'm going to tailor like, what I'm saying like to their mission. That's something you should definitely do when applying, like tailor what you're saying to their mission. But I mean, it's just so different. Like, I mean, at ECU, you can get you could do the exact same thing you're doing, really. I think it really doesn't matter. I think it's more about like, I don't know, where you fit in. Like, it's almost like speed dating or something. But yeah, it's a hard process. And let me bring it back to what I was thinking about. One of my good friends who was at my post-bac program, he killed the MCAT. I mean, he killed it. And he had like 10 publications. The first time around he applied, he didn't get in anywhere. He did not get in. The second time he applied, and he went to Harvard in undergrad. I think he got like 1C or something in his entire life. And he didn't get in. So it really just shows that it's really holistic. Like they want like a little bit of everything. And I think just through that, what you can make your personality shine is kind of where you'll fit in with a different school. I hope that might have answered something.
That was great. Thank you for sharing your experiences.
I had a question for all three of you guys. So all three of you go to like North Carolina medical schools. So I think that's important. At least for me, that's important because like I want to stay in North Carolina, at least for now. Are there like post-bac programs at your schools that like, I guess, kind of help you get your foot in the door, like for the medical schools? I know some medical schools have programs like that. but I'm not sure about the North Carolina medical schools.
Yeah. So,
State
oh,
has a-
sorry. Go ahead.
You're fine. I was just gonna say state actually has a good physiology program. A lot of people do. It's not really post-bac, but it's like you get a master's in physiology. I know a lot of kids who did that. There's a couple like minority programs like MED that UNC has. I know ECU has an MED program.
I was gonna talk about, yeah, they did that. I actually did, ECU did a cool thing, or they did when I did it. Let me backpedal. What is it called? It's like Summer Program for Future Doctors is what it's called here. And you can do it, most people do it after their junior year, I think, because you're essentially taking med school classes during the summer, like a small snippet of like neuro and phys and stuff like that. So I actually ended up doing it before I started med school. So I started med school in August of 2017. I quit work in April of 2017 to go to this summer program because I wanted just to kind of get my feet wet again with school since I'd been out for a while. And that was a great way to do it. And even though it was a little bit different because the pressure was off of me because I wasn't applying to med school, I got to see what it was like for students that were doing it to apply in the future to hopefully be a med student. So I'm happy to answer like if anybody had specific questions about that. I think that was a great program. And if you did well, Brody really, really, really likes you. So it's not necessarily post-bac or a master's and just a summer thing, but I think that's a great option.
Yeah, so Campbell has an MSBS program, so it stands for Master of Science in Biomedical Science. And so the reason I picked that is because it's in the medical school. So I knew I would be able to, meet people on admissions, get close to professors, because it's the master program is taught by the medical school, like professors, right? So I know I'll be able to make connections, meet people, and then from there, build that connection with admissions. So I think I mentioned last time, so I retook my MCAT in January and applied in February of that same cycle. And that's only because I had such a good connection with the admissions, and they were really impressed by my performance in the program. They're like, if you apply late, as long as your MCAT is above our minimum, like we consider you for a waitlist position. And I was able to get off that waitlist and cut my program from 2 years to 1 year and just start medical school. So if you want to go into a master's, and I actually have, it's funny, so there's about like 2 or 3 people who did Jessica's program at Hopkins at our school. So we have a lot of people who have like second. I'm sorry.
But I wonder if I know them.
Rick Caldos, I think his name was, last name called. Yeah, I think they graduated like a year or 2 ago. But like when there are a lot of people like in med school, especially like I can speak personally from my school that have a master's degree or some sort of other like second degree bachelor's degree. If it's something like, and my personal, like if your GPA is not as strong, then I definitely recommend it. But if you have a very good GPA, it can potentially hurt you more than help you, because they expect you, like if you graduated 3.8 in undergrad, like they expect you at least to get a 3.8 in the master's, right? So it'll be more question marks than being like, oh, well, you went from a 3.8 in undergrad to a 3.0 in a master's program, like what changed? As if it was the other way around. Like for me personally, I had a 3.3 in undergrad, and then I finished the Campbell's with a 3.8. So they're like, okay, well, what changed? Like you went from a 3.3 to a 3.8. So I was like, all right, well, I changed my study habits, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z. So if anyone has like questions, if a master's for them, like please feel free to email me, and we can talk privately if you'd like.
Oh yeah.
All right, thank
you.
you.
I have a question. Jan touched on whether or not having a personal life was possible in med school last time he was with us. And I know everyone's schedule is very different year to year in med school. So I'm kind of wondering like how you guys each personally decompress. Do you have really like strict studying schedules? So maybe you just don't study past a certain time every night, or maybe you give yourself like Saturdays off or anything like that?
I'm wondering if you noticed my reaction. I was just like, I think it's hard in COVID because we're stuck at home. It really does work if you can make a schedule for yourself. I think it's nice because the schools really understand that we're in a challenging time, and most of our classes are optional on Zoom. Like they'll have live lectures on Zoom, but we don't have to attend them. They're recorded, so we could watch them on our own time. And I do have to be at one class in person. That kind of scares me because it's like actually near an area where they're doing COVID testing. But it's fine. You really just have to talk to your friends because everybody's going through the same thing. So try to find some friends that you're really close with that you can just kind of, relax with. But yeah, I do intense exercise. I actually teach fitness. And that's really my decompressor. I usually will work out at night so I can just like let go of all the stress from the day. But it's super important to find wellness, wellness things that work for you because, just because you got into med school, like your problems aren't going to go away. And I kind of thought a lot of that would happen to me because, I was like, oh my God, yes, I finally got in. Like I can just forget everything I've been working so hard for. But that's not true. It's very validating when you get in. It's, amazing feeling. And I'm so happy to be here. But you still have to keep up the personal work too. So definitely make sure that you have an outlet for that. There's also really great mental health resources. UNC is really unique in that they just hired like 2 counselors only for the School of Medicine. So that's really great.
Hey everyone, just stepping in. I'm Jean-Luc. I'm an MS3. I'm just coming out of HIV clinic. I also
You're breaking up.
School of Medicine with Jessica. Interests are internal medicine, infectious disease, maybe orthopedic surgery. I'm kind of all over the place. But both are really good friends of mine from college, so happy to help answer any questions I can until.
Well, Jean-Luc is there.
Yes, I don't know what happened to him. I think we were talking about what we do in our free time, right? So I actually am married, and I got married a year before I started med school. So I've had a husband all through med school, and it's been a hard balance, but it's very doable. Granted, he was in the military, so our first year we were apart, and that kind of helped with me being able to focus during the week, and then on the weekends I was with him. But we have spent a lot of time together and done things. I have a dog, and then you make good friends in med school and hang out with them. I think like going into med school, you seem like it's a lot more intimidating that you're going to be slammed and you're going to be studying all the time, but you definitely kind of get in your groove and get used to it after like the first few months or month or so. And you kind of figure out like your workout schedule again and what your hobbies are. You may not be able to do the 15 hobbies you had, but you may do the 5 good ones. There's definitely time, and you definitely need to still do those because med school is hard. And you need to have a good support system too, because there's going to be times when you cry and you're angry and you're upset and you're like, why did I do this? But I promise it's worth it.
Yeah, I cried yesterday and I talked to Jean-Luc, but it's okay. It's a lot of fun. I see a lot of people asking like, what kind of doctor do you want to be? I've always wanted to be a pediatrician. I have no idea if I actually will be a pediatrician. And plus it's really early in my training to say if I want to be whatever, because it's going to change. Like the way you study changes. So what you realize is different. And then you're really not going to know until you get on the wards, say like actually doing it and being with the people. So that's really when you're going to find out like where you fit in with. I don't know if that's what your experience was, Hannah. Did you always know you wanted to do OB?
I did. Someone asked the question and I saw that. So I was really weird. And I'm by no means normal in terms of my class of being the fact that I knew I wanted to do OB. So I've kind of been fixated on being OB since as long as I can remember. And that was part of the reason why I pursued the MA job at the gynecology office, because I wanted to see for sure if I loved it. And I did. And I came to med school and tried to convince myself that I was going to like other things. And there's a difference because everybody's like, you need to have an open mind. And you can do that, but still know what you want to do, because I'm never going to see peds again. I'm never going to see family again. I'm never going to see internal medicine again. And so I want to get good experience. And plus there's crossover in all of the fields if you really look at it. And so I tried to make myself like surgery, not make myself, but I tried to be more interested in that, or anesthesiology, and did rotations in those, and just nothing was as good as OB. So needless to say, my mind has not been changed and I'm going into OB and absolutely love it. But I don't want anybody to feel like you need to know what you want to do, because I mean, in 1 year, I remember half my class saying, I don't know what I want to do. Maybe family medicine, maybe surgery. And then most of those people probably aren't doing what they said they wanted to do in 1 year. And I think probably most of those people didn't know what they wanted to do until like the last 6 months. So don't be worried. I mean, when you're going to get asked, or at least I got asked during my interview, well, what do you want to do? Because my application had some ped stuff, like ped related stuff, and obviously OB stuff on my application. And people would ask me, well, okay, what do you want to do? And I would tell them the truth, but it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay to say, I think I want to do primary care. You don't have to know the answer, but definitely don't force yourself to like something or try to appease the school, because they're going to know, like Brody's family practice. Wow, where are my words? Primary care is a big thing at Brody, and they're going to know if you're just saying that just because you think that's the right answer. So the short answer is you don't have to know.
Right. And actually, like from, like, again, because with the master program, I got a lot of I got really close to admissions and all that, and I asked them that sort of question because before med school, like I really, like, anyone asked me, like I'd be like, I'm doing it emergency medicine. That's the only thing I want to do. Like I'd rather be in emergency medicine PA than, like, for example, I don't know, like a family medicine doctor. Like that's just how much I want to do EM. And the advice I got was like, that's great. Like I'm happy that you think you know what you want to do, because you don't know what's gonna change. Because again, like Hannah alluded to, a lot of people who said, like, I want to do ortho from day one, and you ask them now, they're like, yeah, I think I like anesthesia, right? So you really, like rotations, again, as Hannah, I'm sure will agree with, like rotations, you'll see like what you really want to get into. So the advice they gave me is like, don't be afraid to say what you're passionate about, but don't make it seem that you're just like, I'm only doing this, I don't care. Because you might come off like you're not someone that could be, how can I say this? Like someone who's like, I guess, really like only adamant on one thing and isn't open to other ideas. So like the way I answered it when they asked me like, what do you want to do? Is like, well, I really like EM because I was a scribe at Mount Sinai for 2 years. I was an EM leader. So, but unfortunately, like that's a biased answer because that was my only exposure. So I will keep an open mind to whatever else, like I will see in rotations or everything. And they like that answer. It says like, okay, he knows what he wants to do, but he's open to seeing everything before he really decides.
Yeah.
Hannah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey everyone, sorry, I'm like all over the place today. Yeah, I definitely like second all that advice. I think there's this big misnomer when you go, especially to Brody or to UNC, which are very big focused on primary care, to say like, I want to go into primary care, I want to be a family doc, I want to save the world from the primary care route. And I think it all just depends on what you really want to do and the importance of knowing enough about what you want to do. I mean, you know, at this point in your medical school interview, you should have enough medical experience to have like an idea of what you want to do, or just as importantly, an idea of what you don't want to do. But you know, it's okay to go in there and say like, I'm interested in surgery at a school that's focused in primary care, like UNC and I mean, like Brody. Just understand why you want to do that. I just remember as pre-med president, I had a person tell me that they were going to be a cardiothoracic surgeon because they really admired Christina Yang. I said,
get in.
but don't say that in a med school interview. And I think there's a question in the chat about, the deciding factor that made me pick the school that I went to. So I was between really a few different schools. It mostly came down to Brody versus UNC. For me, I had wonderful people like Hannah at Brody to support and chide me along the way. But I took 2 years off, so a lot of my friends were at Brody or at UNC. and I was fortunate to get into both of those schools. But for me, UNC has a pass-fail curriculum in the first 2 years, and I thought it would be important for me to worry about passing instead of getting an A. Hannah can tell you right now, it doesn't matter as much as you make it think that you do. Even though, and Jessica can tell you too, as an MS2, even though it's pass fail, you still stress yourself out about getting the A or the B or whatever, even though the final thing says pass fail. And UNC for me actually just seemed like a place where I wanted to be because I could come down to different locations to do my clinical rotations. I'm here in Wilmington, North Carolina right now doing my 3rd year and my 4th year. And that's something that I believe Campbell also has. But that was a big reason I picked UNC. I own a house down here. I could come down here. But the caliber of people and the friendliness of people are equal at all the places. I like to think that many mean people don't get into med school. I mean, I love my class. Hannah can tell you about her class. Jessica can tell you about her class. And then other people can tell you about their classes. But the people in med school are pretty great. So you're going to get good people no matter where you go.
I had a question. So like for a lot of like med schools and stuff like that, like they always ask you, why medicine? And they're always like, never say that, I'm going into medicine because I want to help people. But like that kind of is the reason.
Right.
So like how do you guys go about, answering that?
I'll just never forget Dr. Flick saying, you can help people by working at McDonald's. I'll never forget her saying that because, I mean, or what did she say? You can serve people working at McDonald's. I think you're going to get asked that question, and I'm trying to think of what my answer was because obviously I thought about like, how do I answer these interview questions? And I think honestly, this is like the perfect time to tell your stories. And so if you have patient interactions or even volunteer interactions, tell those stories and use those to show, okay, this is why I love working with people, and this is why I want to go into medicine. Because I think that makes your story is your story, and nobody else is going to have it, and so that makes you unique too. So I think just trying to find a creative way to answer that without saying, don't say the words, I want to help people, if that makes sense. Just come up with that story. Sorry, I keep saying that, but.
So like, I guess like show that you want to help people, but don't say it.
Like honestly, like for me, go ahead, Jessica.
You can go.
Like for me, for example, like with personal statement, like I molded my statement as in like a past, present, future context. So like there was a certain event in my past that was like the defining moment. I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. And then through my present, at the time, like when I was just back like 2018 when I applied. So at that present time, like what's going on now that reconfirms why I want to do this, and then in the end, like this is my future plans with everything, So, basically, I'm answering why I want to do this without saying like your typical, oh, I want to help people, I want to make a difference, blah blah. We all do, and I'm laughing because our dean really said like, yeah, you want to help people, you can go be a lawyer. Like, why do you want to be a doctor? There's many ways you can help people. So just use whatever life experience you have. A patient story is also great. That gives you something to talk to. If there's a patient that made a difference to you in your life, be like, wow, like that's really cool how I was able to help this person, or this person affected me. And it's a life lesson that you can talk about.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I kind of made mine into a poem, and I was just like, I don't know, feeling creative, and I wanted to stand out. And like I said, like my MCAT score was really not that good. But again, it's holistic. So I'm a strong writer. So I told, a story about, like my younger sister had cancer, and I was actually her bone marrow donor. And then I wrote it, I kind of worked that into, I weaved that into a way that, I was talking about why I wanted to be around medicine, but then like I said, when I was working in DC, I got sick. So then I actually wrote about me getting sick. I kind of compared the lessons I learned from that to my own. And then I kind of concluded it with like, you know, what has overcoming these things like led me to want to do, like what have I learned as a result of, you know, overcoming those things, but also like, how can I use that to give back? How can I use that to make a difference within the field? Really just show them like your curiosity and your excitement too, because it's just so cliche to say, you know, I want to help people. It's just, I mean, that's just like almost a lazy answer. And no one's going to say that. Like, you're not going to say that.
Honestly, the best advice I can give you guys, don't tell me, show me. Like, for example, I like doing okay, for example, like why I picked Campbell, I know I alluded to this last time, but mission trips is something really big to me. Like one of my pre-med clubs that I was president of worked with international underserved communities, and I was able to go on mission trips, and then I saw that, okay, that's something that Campbell's really passionate about. So when it came time to interview, instead of me saying like, yeah, I want to come here because I want to do mission trips, like no, I'm passionate about mission trips because look, this is what I've done. And just to give you an example, I'm not saying you all should go on one, but just to show you like, okay, I'm not telling you guys I want to do this. I'm showing you that like, you know, like I'm actually about it because I've done it and I will continue to do it. And that's just what I like want to focus my career on. So don't tell them, show them.
And I'll also say, I want to say it was my Brody interview, or it might have been Campbell. It was one of my earlier ones. And I said, like, I want to help people. And then, because that was just my gut reaction of not what I didn't want to say, but I said it anyway. And I was like, oh crap, I'm not supposed to say this. And I think I told my interviewer that, like, I'm, you know, but here's how I want to help people. I want to help people through all stages of medicine. And I want to start at the, you know, the primary focus of preventative medicine. And at the time I was working for the CDC and I was in a local public health office. So I talked about how important primary and preventative care is in preventing progression of disease so that we don't get to secondary and tertiary care levels and patients are just not screwed. I said it more eloquently than that. But it's okay to say you want to help people. Just tell me how. You know, like Dr. Flick always said, and Hannah said it too, you know, you can help people by doing literally anything else, but why medicine? Is it because you want to be the person in charge of someone else's health? Is it because you want to be in charge of, you know, the final say? So why medicine over PA versus NP route? I think these are all very important considerations because once you take the MCAT, you get into med school, you take all the boards we have to take in medical school. It's a really long journey. And so part of the whole med school application process, I think, should be figuring out that this is definitely what you want to do. Because I don't know if Jessica and Hannah have talked about this, or Jan as well. You know, once you're in medical school, there's going to be a lot of times you're going to doubt yourself. It's hard. I think people say, at least all my friends are like, it's so manageable. Like, no, it's hard. There are many hard times in medical school, but if you've worked out all those things in your mind of like, I can't imagine myself doing anything else, I think that's the most important part. And so, yeah, it's definitely hard. It's definitely worth it. You know, you're going to have some really big highs. You're going to have some really big lows, as you will in 4 years of any kind of educational pursuit. But if you can figure out and keep that driving motivation of why you want to do this during your med school interviews and during your application cycle, and it changes as you get through med school, I think that'll at least help you with all the preclinical stuff before you get into actually seeing patients and seeing all the work that makes a difference. I'm only like half a year out of that, and I've forgotten so much of all that preclinical stuff. So Jessica may be able to touch more on that.
Yeah. I don't really know. I don't have anything to really say about it, but yeah, Charlie said, I agree with everything. I guess it's definitely hard, and you will have, really, it is very worth it, because it's really cool when you learn something and then you know, just are in the hospital and you see something that you learned about, and it's just like, whoa, it's all coming together. Kind of gives you motivation to keep going on. Because I mean, it's literally, they'll tell you it's drinking, you know, water from a fire hose, or I think more accurately, drinking water from a waterfall. Because it's just so much. I mean, they would probably throw in like a whole semester. You would probably do a whole semester of undergrad in like a month. So it's just a lot of work. But they break it up really well, and you know, it will be hard, but everyone's in the same position as you, so you work together. But use your advisors. Like, I talk to my teachers all the time, and that's really helpful to me. And I also, you know, kind of gain some networking skills doing that. And that, you know, I also have a tutor. Like, there's tutoring options, so you can really, they really care about you, and they really want to make sure you do well. So yeah, I'm trying to like half read the chat at the same time.
I second that about the tutoring thing. Brody has tons of options for that. And also, I wanted to go back. I know Jessica mentioned this earlier, and just to reiterate that, because I thought it was important, about the counselors and mental health people at UNC. Brody does the same thing. It's through the Brody or the ECU Counseling Center, but there's people that are specifically designated for medical students. And you call and you can go see them as many times as you want. It's free, it's confidential. And Brody also, which I don't know if UNC does this, they probably do, but they will cover psychiatry visits too. So if you need anxiety medicine or anything like that, you can go to one of the ECU psychiatrists and they will see you for free, and Brody covers it. So I think that's very helpful, because I mean, mental health is hard in med school.
Yeah, we have at Campbell too, we have an entire department, like a behavioral health team, just for the med students, PA students, nursing and PT, where it's like, if you need to talk to someone, it's all anonymous, no one will ever know. You just send an email, be like, hey, I really need to see someone about anything. It could be anything, school, relationships, like, because there's a lot of things again, it is really hard. Like for me, it's been hard for me and my fiance. Like, I'm lucky that she is a pharmacist, so she knows like how much work it goes into it. But like, there's a lot of people in my class who are struggling with that, you know, especially long distance and all that stuff. It takes a toll on you, you know, with all this stuff. Especially like, if like for me, like I was laughing when he was saying like, I forgot what he was saying, but like, oh, you'll continue to doubt yourself. Like, I had an exam the other day, and so I didn't do as I wanted to, and it's just like, man, like, studied all this much, like, what am I doing? Like, you know, am I just not smart enough as these other people who are getting A's and I'm not? Like, it's tough, you know. Just make ssure you have like your loved ones around, because that's what's going to get you through. And do not be afraid to talk to someone, like, especially, and I love that I hear like other schools have like behavioral health like ready to go, because it is something that's important, especially with burnout, because it's not a joke.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really want to like get negative, but well, this is not negative, but there have been, just in my time at UNC, there's actually been like 2 physician suicides. So I mean, these things are real, and it's really important to look for in a medical school just where you fit in. Like, if you know, don't apply somewhere just because you think you can get in. Like, if that's the only school you get into, are you going to go there? So I think that's really important to consider, because I know a lot of people are just like, oh, I'm going to get into this school, so I'll just apply. But like, what if you get in there? Conversely, if you get in somewhere, you don't have to go, because again, like, this is what you're dedicating your life to. So you want to make sure you go when you're ready, just like when I said, you know, applying when you're ready, because you want to apply when you're the best you can be, and then go when you're ready too, because there's going to be heavy stuff. Like I said, your issues aren't going to go away just because you got accepted. You have your issues, and now you're studying, you know, professionally full time. But again, you know, you just got to do those tips. Go to the wellness center. I've done that. All of that good stuff. Orgo? Oh God, yeah. I miss it because I don't even remember how to draw stuff anymore, and I think that would have been helpful. But yeah, I mean, you know a little bit of stuff, but the nice thing about medical school is it applies. So you're not going to learn something that you really never need to know. Like, I really struggled with physics. And, there's a little bit of physics in cardiology, maybe in ortho, but for the most part, it applies. So you can see how it makes sense, and in turn, you want to learn it. Whereas in undergrad, I just struggled wanting to learn it because I was like, there's never going to be a ballerina in space. I don't care how fast she's spinning. It's just not realistic. So that was my
retweet. I think
honestly, all those classes are just to see if you can handle workload. Like physics, is important when you get to cardio, especially. But it's not anything that's some crazy formula about some ballerina. It's how does the blood flow? Okay, cool, and use 1 or 2 formulas. And it's just more for the conception of how physics and cardio goes together, or when biochem you'll see a structure of a glucose or a fatty acid and be okay, cool. All right, moving on now. It's more clinically relevant of why you need to know. I used to say why would I ever need to know physics? And then when you get to cardio block, you're okay, now I get it. Or but yeah, someone said anatomy is really important, biochem is really important. If you can take immunology, that would be cool, and microbiology, because that definitely helped me. But yeah, physics and orgo is really, yeah.
I think we had one last question about scholarships and financing, and then the questions were closed. So I don't know how Jessica and Jan think about this, but for med school, it's expensive. But honestly, y'all, I don't even think about it. I have gotten some scholarships, but most of it has been loans, and I'm probably up to $175,000 in debt maybe now. I don't even look at it until taxes, if I'm being honest. So that sounds terrifying, but you're going to be making so much money. Whatever your opinion is about that is not the point right now, but you're going to be making a lot of money, and you're going to be able to pay it back, and it really is so worth it. And I think, I look at my sister and her husband, my sister's applying to med school, and her husband, it just completely freaks him out that she's going to be living on loans and in debt and all of this stuff. And it just is what it is. And it's the normal. Sure, some people will be a full scholarship. I think there's 3 in my class. Sure, some people's parents will pay for it, and that's awesome. But I think a lot of people are going to be on loans. And I even am using a loan to pay for a car loan. So it just happens. So I don't know how to normalize it anymore, other than just it's what we do, and you're going to be able to get by. Some people are better with their money throughout med school with their loans than others, but it's just another stepping stone, and it's only 4 years of your life before you start residency, because in residency you will be making some money. I don't know if you guys realize that. It's not a lot of money, but it's $60,000 a year, so you can start paying off those loans in residency. And then once you're in attending or working as a full doctor, you're going to be making well into 6 figures, and so you'll spend 10 years or 20 years paying off those loans. But it's just normal, and it's okay. I don't want you to feel like you can't go to med school if you can't afford it and have to take out a lot of loans, because you can.
Yeah. Hannah and Jessica are fortunate that they do go to state schools, and their tuition is a lot cheaper than mine.
That's true.
But so if you can get into state school, that would be really awesome, instead of a private school. But even so, I'm not worried about my loans, because luckily I have no undergrad debt. So all my debt really is 1 year of a master's in med school. There are kids in my class with close, over $500,000 in debt. And I have a cousin, because my cousin's a DO, he's an ER attending in Texas. And I'm when I graduate, I'm going to be around $300,000. And he's laughing. He's yeah, mine was close to 400. I lived like I lived, but I lived like a resident for 2 years as an attending and paid all of it back in 2 years. He was if you want to pay it back, you can, or treat it like a phone bill and pay it off for 10, 20 years. So don't worry about that. You'll pay it off. You can pay it off in as little as 3 years if you really wanted to, and just living very simple, and not buying a Beamer or a Mercedes right after residency. And there's a lot of refinancing options. My fiance, she was able to refinance her loan interest from 7 to 3%. So that takes a huge toll. You have incentives if you buy a home, they give you an incentive for your loan. So trust me, it'll be the least of your worries. It's a scary number to look at, but you're investing in yourself, right? If you take out $200,000 to open a restaurant, there's a good chance your restaurant will not, prosper God forbid, and now you're in $200,000 debt. You're taking a very calculated, safe risk in investing in yourself. So that's how I look at it.
All right, well, I guess we'll start wrapping up. Hannah, Jan, Jessica, thanks a lot for coming. I think this has been like really helpful. Like it's been helpful for me. So
Good.
I know it's been
Good.
helpful for everybody else too. I think they dropped their email addresses in
Yes.
the chat. So obviously, like I know I'm probably gonna be emailing them. So
I know I said this in the chat, but seriously, email me. I'm a little bit removed from the process, but I promise I probably have less or more free time than Jessica and Jan right now, because I'm getting ready to start into interview season, and they give us some time off for that. So fourth year's much more chill. So that makes you guys feel better. It's 3 really, really hard years, and then fourth year's better outside of the interview process again. So seriously, email us if you need anything.
And we'll add those emails to the meeting minutes, so you'll all receive them in your email as well.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be sending out an email later in the week with the YouTube link, the meeting minutes, the slides, all of that stuff. Thanks for coming. If you guys want to follow us on Instagram, that's where we like have our most recent updates at NC State Pre-Med. Our next meeting is going to be September 30th at 3 p.m. So that's 2 weeks from now. Feel free to contact Ryan or myself about the club, feedback, just any questions you have. And like I said, we'll be sending out an email later with all the details from this meeting. Thanks everybody for coming, and have a good one.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Y'all have a great day.
Bye,
Take care.
guys.
You're welcome.